All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to the CEI Entrepreneurship Lecture Series, hosted by the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation Ambassadors. My name is Stefan Wolf, and today we are here with the app panel, which is 3 former UF students who have gone on to start their own app communities, and we're going to talk to them and try to learn a little bit about what they've done and try to get some of their wisdom that they've hopefully earned along the way. So starting at the far end, we have Jordan Johnson, the president and CEO of ToTuit. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Aidan Augustin here, CEO and co-founder of Feathr, and Oren Kantor here, CEO and founder of SportsPicker. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So basically we're going to spend some time today. We're going to talk about the steps you took to get to where you are, the high points, the low points, and just something you can give to the crowd and basically takeaways you'd like to learn when you were starting off. So I think we'll start with Oren. So can you tell me a little bit about SportsPicker? What's that all about?
Well, SportsPicker was developed back when I was in the MSc program. As I graduated in, I believe, May of 2011, our final business plan presentation, mine ended up being SportsPicker. It was during the March Madness competition, and I was busy involved in picking my bracket and rooting for my teams. And it just clicked to me, there needed to be a way to get this kind of excitement for all sports, and that was the basis for SportsPicker.
Very cool. And since then, you've grown to what? What happened after that?
After that, it was a long learning curve to get to where we are today, up on the App Store. We are a Facebook and iOS application with an Android application on its way. And I learned a lot of important lessons that we'll get to a little further down the road.
Awesome, perfect. Aidan, what about you?
So Feathr is a smartphone application designed to take on the challenge of bringing personal and professional networking into today's digital age. So on the one hand, there's the paper business card, which is a real pain to deal with. You have to type in everyone's information one by one. If you come home from a conference, you have this whole stack of new contacts, and you got to type in their phone number, email, etc. So that's the first problem. The second is, you of all people would know, in today's digital age, we have a LinkedIn, a Facebook, a Twitter, we have our YouTube video, we have a blog, a personal website, a company website if you're involved in the company, etc. So you have all this digital content, and there's no effective way to share it. So we're trying to combine these two problems into one solution where we can automate all the data entry and streamline the process of following up, but also give you an effective way to share all your digital online content that defines today's modern professional.
Very cool. Awesome. What about you, Jordan? What's ToTuit about?
We're founded on a dream that college campuses and the transportation environment in America can be a better place with the use of mobile technology. And so we're introducing systems that we think college campuses, students, administration, services that are provided on college campuses, as well as the ground transportation industry in America can be better off using some platform-based systems that we're creating on the iPhone and on the Android phone and iPad and tablet and whatever else they decide to come out and invent in the next few months. Maybe the iPad Mini or the Mini iPad. We'll be doing work on all those things.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I think the first question that always begs whenever you ask someone about what they've done with an app startup, specifically an app startup, is how did you get that idea? What did you see as the opportunity in the marketplace? How did you get that idea? You kind of already spoke to that, so you want to keep going with that one?
Yeah, at the time in the MSc program, our final presentation was a full business plan and pitch. And I wanted to do something along the lines of what I loved. And I spent 4 years rooting for the Gator basketball and football team and watched them win national championships. And I said, wouldn't it be great if I could continue rooting for sports teams and have some sort of business interest in it? So SportsPicker was somewhat born then. It's evolved over the past year and a half. And now we are a sports prediction platform that is looking to expand to new markets. And one of the routes we're considering taking is taking our technology and white labeling it onto other people's websites to gamify their websites and engage their users for longer.
That's very cool. What about Aidan? Where was your inspiration? Where you just had a stack of business cards on your desk, you didn't start typing in, you're just like, I'm making an app?
Yeah, most college students don't go to networking events with business cards, so I get that question a lot. But there's a very specific instance. I had an internship in Silicon Valley, I was engineering for, Space Systems L'Oreal, a company that builds satellites. While I was out there, I was already interested in entrepreneurship, so I was trying to go to these networking events and meet other people at Stanford, so college students that were also interested in entrepreneurship. And there was one event in particular that, in this room is some of the youngest, smartest, tech-savviest people in the world, but we all had this great time, and we all wanted to stay in touch. But nobody had a business card. We're all college students, and so it was this really awkward moment in every single conversation. It was like a broken record over and over again. Hit the same spot, and it was like, what do we do now? So some people would say, oh, well, just type in my info real fast, or it would be, let me send you an email, we can follow up later, or I'll find you on my Facebook app, and then we can, whatever. Somebody would say, download this app, and there's Bluetooth, and we can share. But everybody had a different solution, and that was just, really confusing, and none of these ways were that effective. So it kind of blew my mind that these smart, tech-savvy people, and we were, in this awkward phase in every conversation. So I thought we could build something better. That's what we did. It's
a platform that is kind of like, I don't know if you've seen that Mad Men video. It's like where they bring out their business cards and everyone's like talking about their business cards.
From American Psycho, right?
American Psycho. Yeah. So I just every time I think of Feathr, it's just like, oh yeah, business cards.
Exactly.
What about you, Jordan?
It would have been cool if they in Mad Men had the Feathr app. You should
That'll
call
be the future.
Mad Men and see if, I think they have 2 more seasons left. I watched the show. Maybe they'll like pull it out in the middle of a show and just be like, here's my card. Just a thought. You might owe me a lot of money one day. Well, unlike Oren and Aidan, we didn't really have an aha moment in our business. Oren says that he likes to watch Gator Sports, and Aidan had his moment with business cards. We sort of had an evolution of our idea, and just an understanding of, okay, we know that by 2014 that the mobile environment will be huge. In fact, it will be $58 billion in size, which, to put into perspective, is larger than the entire music industry as a whole. And you hear numbers like 1,000% revenue growth by 2014, which is just a year and a half away, less than a year and a half. And you start hearing and you see, there's more mobile users today than there are desktop users. I was just at a conference when somebody told me that there are more mobile phones than toothbrushes, which was extremely disturbing. And I wish it didn't have to be like that. I would almost like it to be even between the two. But and I'm not even sure if that's correct. I've been researching that, but I haven't been able to find an answer. We understand that the environment and the market is moving this way. People are going to, mobile apps are next. Websites are today. Websites were the 90s and the 2000s. But we feel like we're people in my company. We like working with people. We like establishing relationships. We don't just like working for you for one day and taking the cash and never seeing you again. We want to work with you over and over again to help make sure that your brand is in your customers' pockets. And that's what attracted us to the mobile app environment. Maybe 100 years ago we would have been interested in newspaper advertising, but today it's mobile apps, and that's our outlet, that's our channel. And so that evolution of thinking is what brought myself and my business partner and our team to the mobile app industry.
So that wasn't really aha moments, just more like coming to the conclusion that this is the route you want to take.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Kind of on that train of thought, the app world is interesting because all these people have smartphones, iPads that they're using, and everyone has apps. But whenever I go on the app store, I'm always like looking for the top free apps. I'm never looking at the paid side because I just don't want to pay. I mean, you have to really sell me to buy a paid app. So, Oren, I have a question for you. How's your structure as far as receiving money from your app? How do you generate revenue from your app?
I was just like you. I never touched the paid side of the app store, and in my mind I said, when I create an app, I'm going to create one that I would have played. So SportsPicker is completely free to play to the end user. Initially, our business model was to build up this extremely multi-million user base, and when I got out there and launched the app, it's just not, you just don't put it out there and get millions of users. That's been one of the issues we ran into. Recently we've gotten some good press and our downloads have gone up, and we have a good amount of users now. And the initial plan was to reach out to sponsors and say, don't you want to get your brand in front of these users? But when you don't have the millions of users, the brands don't really care to get out in front of a smaller user base. So that's where we had to kind of pivot, and we went to the white labeling our technology, say we'll go out to a brand who already reaches millions of people, and they can add their brand's sports prediction game onto their website, and that's the model we have moved to now. And so still always going to be a free game to play. I never want to charge an end user to play.
True, very true, and that's you just reconfirmed everything that I just said. Aidan, I know that for you specifically, it's very hard. Like you have the same problem that he does, the same challenges that he does, distinguishing yourself amongst the sea of other apps, because it's a positive feedback loop. Once you get users, people want to pay you. The more they pay you, the more people use. So you have to get into that feedback loop. But how do you get into that? How are you finding that challenge?
So we're a networking application, so we need to be free because we need people to use it. Similar to the initial stages of Facebook and any of these other social networks, the network effect and what some people call the chicken and egg problem is very much at play here, because unless other people are using the same networking platform, there's no point in using it. So the two ways we've addressed that, the first is you can share your Feathr card directly from your phone to anybody, even if they've never heard of the app before. So that's a big step that allows it to be useful to me, even if I'm the only person on earth that uses Feathr. So I can still build this beautiful interactive card with all my beautiful digital content. I can send it to you, and you can still receive it and interact with it. So that's via our web app. So we're focusing on our mobile native application. We have a web app, so I can just send you essentially a link to it. We'll just pull up my card through your browser. So that will allow us to spread as well, because if I meet 10 people a month, and even if only one of them downloads it, we just doubled our users each month. So that's how we're focusing on getting that organic viral growth. In terms of the revenue model, we have a premium version focused on business professionals. This will allow you to sync with your Salesforce.com account, which is a customer relationship management system a lot of businesses use. We'll be able to automate draft emails and flag for follow-up, and some of the powerful contact management tools we're reserving for the paid version, because the average user doesn't really need that type of CRM type functionality.
So that freemium.
Exactly. So freemium, and then also in the free version, in the contact list, you have all the Feathr cards that you've received. The first one at the very top will be a sponsored contact, similar to the sponsored results at the top of a Google search. So it's not an ad, it's not a flashing, changing banner ad that when you click it will link to a page or whatever. It's just someone else's Feathr card, a business's Feathr card, and they can put their social media or their contact info and their latest specials or whatever it is, and they'll just pay to have their card featured at the top of your contact list. And opening it will just open it just like any other card. So again, it's a more trustworthy than again those flashing banner ads at the bottom of the apps that you never want to click on. So that's the secondary.
The modern day Rolodex.
Exactly.
Jordan, from my understanding, ToTuit is more about you building apps for other people. Mm-hmm. So that they're paying you for those services. You are the app architect, if you will.
Yeah.
So how do you attract people to come to you instead of being this model where you build the app on your own, bootstrap it yourself?
Yeah, good question. We don't just build. We're not just a for-hire app shop. We use that as a means to fund our own business and to not have to take investor money so that we can continue to own our company. And so what you'll see us do over there is we'll sort of fill up our time, 80-90% of our, well maybe 80% of our time with paid work. And that'll be custom app development jobs that come in from clients that want an app built, and they'll pay us to do it. But what you see us doing on our other part of that time is developing our own systems. We've developed one so far for the transportation industry, which brings a paper-ridden process to the iPad. Driver's daily logs that every trucker and motor coach operator and bus driver currently have to fill out every single day. And we're also working, kind of like Oren was talking about, on some white labeling of some apps. We're just meeting with the Florida Chamber of Commerce about developing something that every Chamber of Commerce in Florida and then every Chamber of Commerce in the United States could find value in, which is a mobile app that's custom created from scratch just for their area. That we believe that is where the money is to be made in the app business for my personality type, which is a relationship-based kind of cultivating over a long period of time, and that sort of just fits my personality a little bit better. I think the App Store is a scary place, so I feel for these two guys over here.
I personally do not like going on the App Store because you just get bombarded with 15,000 Angry Birds apps that I'm not really interested in playing Angry Birds Costa Rica. So, but you have made an interesting point about time, the time that you're dedicating to certain projects. And I guess I'll turn out to Aidan. When you talk about your time usage, because I mean, being in a startup culture is like not sleeping, basically. So where do you put your time? What is important to you, and where do you allocate your time?
So we're definitely in there between 60 and 80 hours every single week. So you have to really love it, like you mentioned. When you're in a startup, you got to be passionate because it's all day, every day. And the majority of the time right now, we're still in development mode. So we did release a beta over the summer. We got some great feedback, but then we took that feedback and we've been back to work on it. So it's, for the most part, 5 of our 6 team members are programming on the app all day, every day. And then my role, I do a little bit of the product development, but I'm much more focused on raising money right now. So maintaining relationships with potential investors, with potential partners, with other people who have interested in the beta and have tested and give us feedback in the past. So how do we maintain these relationships? So in that case, it's similar to what Jordan said, and that is over time you have to show people your progress and not bug them, but at the same time, make sure you remain on their radar. So.
True, very true. Oren, what about you? Aidan mentioned about the support and the financial support. Where do you find your funding right now?
Currently, we've raised funding from friends and family, and we're not a too capital-intensive business, as our developer and graphics are all equity partners in the business. So they succeed when the business succeeds in the long run. I think one thing that we learned about how we spend our time is, we created the game, we put it out there last October. We had some time to get users in the system, test it, sort of like a private beta, like Aidan said. And we stepped back, we sent surveys out, we got responses from people, and we really wanted to build a game that users wanted to play. So around January, from January till I spent about 6 months redeveloping the game. I restructured the game completely. It went from just a make your pick and check your standings to a challenge-based system that are time-constrained challenges that can start whenever you want and finish whenever you want. I wanted people to be able to come into the game whenever they wanted to and leave the game whenever they wanted to. And spending my time, I spent a lot of time talking to people who played the game and just learning what they wanted and how they wanted the game to get better. And so listening to your users is really important.
Yeah. How is Aidan? How is the beta run? How do you get people into the beta run for Feathr?
So we haven't really done any direct marketing at all. It's been more either word of mouth, or once in a while we'll give a presentation, whether at something like this or at a conference in Orlando, and that's gotten us some attention. And through just word of mouth, we've gotten about 1,100 people who have signed up to be on the beta so far, which is exciting. Over the summer, we released it in waves to about 100 people at a time, up to about 300, 350, and that's where we capped it because we didn't want to give it to everybody. We just wanted to find the bugs, get the feedback, fix it before kind of blowing it up. So we're at the point now where we have this overhauled new version that's significantly faster and better with more features, and now is the time when we're going to shoot out to everybody and then really aggressively start pushing it out. So in the future, the ways we are going to push distribution would be networking events, where this would be the most useful. So if we can talk to an event organizer ahead of time, whether it's the local meetup or startup hour to a conference with 500,000, whatever people, so everywhere in between, if we can talk to the event organizer and convince them that we can add value to their event, make it more interactive or more engaging for their attendees, then everybody who shows up at this conference will have their Feathr card made ahead of time, and they'll have this great experience using it and networking with other people on the app, and are more likely to take it home afterwards. So that's definitely our main plan going forward.
How do you compensate the people on your team? I mean, do interns, are they paid interns? Are they working out of love for the
interns that we have now are working out of love for the company, but the rest of the company, we have about 8 employees that are full-time that are paid.
Can you speak to the ToTuit Academy or mobile academy you're talking about launching?
Yeah, the iPhone is a fascinating system to people, and especially to people that are thinking about getting into the development of mobile apps. And so over the past few months, we've been approached by lots of students who have said, hey, can you guys teach me how to do this? Or I've always wanted to work for a company like yours, but you need experience, and I don't have experience. And well, but the school isn't teaching me how to make iPhone apps. So there's sort of a gap there that we've recognized in higher education.
An opportunity you're leveraging again.
Yeah, there you go. And sort of, good point, tying it all back, recognizing the opportunity. And so if the University of Florida or Florida State University or the schools that are close by us don't want to teach it, then, what better people to teach it than us? We consider ourselves mobile app experts because we understand the business behind it and we understand what it takes to develop a beautiful mobile app. And so we've put together ToTuit Mobile Academy, which is a beginner iPhone app development course that is designed to take somebody with very basic or intermediate programming skills all the way to developing their very first app. And
Oren, you're the only one on this panel actually that isn't based in Gainesville. You're actually out of South Florida in Boca Raton. Why did you choose to go back home to Boca?
Well, I spent 5 years in Gainesville. Best 5 years ever. But I needed a change of scenery. And I actually went up to New York City for the summer after I graduated the MSc program. Realized I wasn't a city boy. I was a homebody, and I needed to be back home, close to my family. I have a very close family, and we have a family office in Boca Raton. And, I think a future question we're going to discuss is one of the lessons you learned, and I think we could jump into that. One of the questions you wanted to touch on was, what was the toughest lesson you learned throughout the process? And I think that brings me back to that summer in New York City. I had received the funding and was set out to create this ultimate sports game. And I'm an idea guy. I came up with the idea and I said, okay, how do I get this thing developed? Of course, the first thing you look to do is how can I get it developed as inexpensively as possible. So I went out and I got quotes. I had about 20 different quotes. And I didn't take the lowest. I didn't take the highest. I had a few people suggest to me, make sure you keep development in the US. You're going to be happier with the results. I didn't listen to that. I outsourced it to India. I spent my mornings waking up around 6 a.m. to get the night call in with the Indian developers, and then stayed up till about midnight to get the morning call with the developers. After about 4 months with them, we realized that it was too much of a culture difference trying to develop a sports game for American sports. And I spent half my time explaining to them how the American sports worked. And so I'd say the hardest lesson I learned, that anyone out there who's interested should try to avoid outsourcing overseas. People told me to avoid it. I didn't listen. And 4 months after I did it, I brought it back in, and now development's back in the U.S. So.
And kind of on the flip side, you two stayed in Gainesville, and you two kept everything local. And how's that been for you? And also, you two are in the innovation hub, right?
That's right.
How's that going for you?
It's awesome. So especially for our team, we're all still students. I think these two are both UF graduates, but we're actually still all undergrads. So for us, being 20 years old, and we began this 21 now, we would never meet these professional, whether it's investors or successful entrepreneurs, lawyers, et cetera, in the wild. These type of connections are not the type of people that we associate with in our social circles. So through the Innovation Hub, we've been able to get the connections and the mentorship, and be put in touch, whether it's members of UF's alumni network or other entrepreneurs here in Gainesville or around the state of Florida, potential investors who come through Gainesville, and they're going to go to the Innovation Hub because this is this little mecca of entrepreneurship within our city. And again, so being in that building just lends us a sense of legitimacy to some extent that being 21, like working out of your garage, would not. So that's the biggest difference it's provided our team specifically, is the professional connections.
Jordan, what about you?
Only thing I would add to what Aidan said is it's bigger than just the four walls that are around the office, but it's also being around other bright people like Aidan and the other entrepreneurs that are in the building. There's energy there, and that's special.
You kind of touched a little bit on it before with the ToTuit Academy, finding the talent, especially in this world where it's very technical. I mean, there's obviously someone at the head driving the idea and driving the whole message, but then you need to have the people supporting you to make sure that those dreams, turn into something that you can play with on your tablet, on your phone. So, how do you end up finding that talent, beyond starting your own academy or finding people out of the university, I guess?
Well, like you just said at the end, the university is a huge resource for finding talent here in Gainesville specifically. And also a good thing about Gainesville is it's centrally located between several other universities. So FSU, UCF, and USF are all 2 hours from here. So that does help with finding talent, whether it's for interns or it's for a potential co-founder. So that definitely is a useful thing. But I would say also, if you have something really exciting, the best advice I could give to everybody here watching this in the future, learn to prototype it yourself. Even if you don't, in the long term, plan on being a technical person, if you can learn enough to build a prototype or to at least understand what it is you're trying to pitch, it will be much easier for you to find that technical co-founder or that first employee to build it for you. Whereas if you're just a guy with an idea who thinks you're brilliant, engineers tend to get turned off by these business people with ideas that just want them to do all the work. So learning a very low level of programming, but enough that you can do something and understand the process is a huge benefit.
And kind of building on that, this is for all three, what technologies do you use? What software do you use? What hardware do you use to make all this? What do you use to turn these apps from ideas and make them into legitimate apps? I'm just going to
Computers.
Computers?
Step one, get a computer.
Does this count?
You need that counts. That's a computer, and that's it, right? Is there anything else? Pen. There are developer programs that we use. I think all of us who've created our apps. I'm not sure who's made their apps, but our developers will just use whatever Apple or Android give us as a developer's kit. That's what they call it.
So you use just
software developer kit, SDK.
You don't do anything for Windows Phone or BlackBerry, do you?
We don't. We've put our bet on Android and Apple. So.
Yeah, the same with us so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that statement. Just based on history and where things seem to be going, it seems like BlackBerry is fading out, and the Windows Phone isn't gaining the traction that they would gain.
And they said it was. They said Windows was going to be good. Did it already come out?
It is. The new version's coming out though, so this will be the test.
Oh, the new version has not come out yet?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll wait and see then.
I had a question for Oren. Do you have an in-house developer now at this point, or is it still just you hiring temporary help?
We have a full-time developer. He's not in-house right now, but he is an equity partner.
Okay.
We are in search of a developer. Anyone who develops in the Ruby on Rails language and environment, send your resumes on to me, oren.kantor@gmail.com, for anyone out there or here. I think going back to the technology we used, when I brought the development back to the U.S., my developer is actually out of Virginia. I brought him on more as a CTO than as an outsourced developer. And he suggested we went with Ruby on Rails, and we've been really happy with the result we've gained from that. Because it makes transition from a web application on Facebook or on a website to an iOS application and an Android application really seamless. You lay out the basis for how the application would work, and it reaches out to a website just built for a mobile browser, which instead of developing a native iOS application written in Objective-C, like Jordan or Aidan probably theirs is written in, the Ruby on Rails works on all environments. But one of the things we are looking for is a full-time Rails developer in Boca, as well as a Objective-C iPhone developer.
What about your teams in general? Like how did your team start? Who was the main people that started the company? And then from there, what do you guys look like now?
I'll start with that one. So I actually co-founded the company with my roommate because he was a computer science major, and we had all been interested in entrepreneurship for a while. And then a couple of other friends, a fraternity brother, and a friend from Silicon Valley actually flew out to join us initially. So that's how we began. And then when things started to get more serious, it was kind of like, who's going to take off school versus just work on this as a side project? There was a shaking of the team, so to speak. And so my original co-founder and I were the only two that stuck around. But since then, we've picked up several other very talented students who are now working with us full time. So we're still all undergrads. We have a combination of graphic design, business, and engineering students on our team.
Very cool.
I think I can continue that one. My team, same way, graphic designing, business, and the programming, engineering side of it. We started with 3 of us, the graphic designer, the programmer, and I. We have an intern now who's working with us just on business development and keeping up with the game that we're running. And one of the things I think we wanted to, our next step is to bring everything in-house like I mentioned before, and also hire a sales team to go out and pitch the white label to all media partners that we can get in touch with. And that's really where we're moving to.
What are you doing?
Was the question, where did you start and where are you at now?
More about the team, the starting of the team. Who was like the main, I guess, cohort you can call it, and then like where did it go from there?
Sure. So ToTuit started out with myself and my business partner. My business partner, Ray Land, has his own sort of day-to-day operation. He runs a large transportation company called Fabulous Coach Lines out of the area, and that sort of takes up 99.9% of his time. So I was brought in with the idea of being the day-to-day guy, and so Ray and I came into town before coming back into Gainesville. I actually graduated 2 years ago. I left, worked for GE out of Connecticut, New York, and DC, and then finally moved back to Gainesville from Washington, DC. And so came back here, started the company, found a team of 3 people, and today we're at 9. So growing a little bit as much as it makes sense, also realizing that growing comes with pains. What you're bad at gets sort of exponentiated when you get bigger. That sort of sounds like it makes sense for life too. But
that can definitely add to that about the growth.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, if you have issues when you're small, they don't just go away because you hire on people. Sometimes people think you can hire people to fix your mistakes, which you can't. You got to fix them. Go ahead.
Yeah, so exact same situation, but specifically, when you're a student in school, even if you're learning development skills, rarely do you work on a large-scale project with multiple team members, and so that is a huge difference in anything, but especially in software, because multiple people are editing the same live code, possibly, or even if it's not live, things can get overwritten, so things can get confused and things get broken because you write a piece and I write a piece and they don't play well together. So scaling a development team is actually rather difficult, especially if you've never done it before and never even worked on a team project before. So that was a huge process we had to go through and are still going through. How do we optimize our team? So just adding more software developers doesn't make you work faster. In fact, sometimes it can make you work slower because you have to get everyone's opinion, you have to debrief everybody, you have to merge your code every so often, and that just creates more problems, and then there's rework, and then people, again, accidentally delete something because they didn't know or whatever. So staying small and staying lean is definitely better than trying to grow because you can.
Yeah, bigger isn't always better, especially here. I mean, especially in this culture.
Yeah, I think I'm about 2 steps behind where they are growing their team, and my team is getting ready to grow. And like Jordan said, just by hiring, you don't fix those problems. So what we're doing is we're in the process trying to cut out every problem we have right now before we bring on more team members. But that is a great point, that just hiring people doesn't fix everything that's wrong.
What do you guys think were the best lessons and the worst lessons you had to learn? Or I guess the lessons that taught you the most, easy way and the hard way? So I guess we start with you, Oren.
Yeah, I think I touched on that a little bit by the hard lesson being don't outsource. Just don't do it. You have an idea. Some guy from India says he could do it for 1/3 of the cost of what everyone else tells you. It's not going to be the same quality. I'd say that was the one lesson that I learned the hard way. Other lessons I learned along the way is don't listen to the individual feedback, listen to the broad feedback. Because you have one person come up to you saying, oh, this could be better if it's moved here, or just put this button here. I think if you hear something over and over again, then it's more of an issue. But everyone has their little nitpicks of what they want fixed, and just don't focus on the individual, focus on the broad views of it.
I'd say learn the hard way is the growth piece that we just touched upon, because we had a team, and then again we shrank, and then we started to grow again at the beginning of the year. And we brought on several interns that were working part-time as developers, and we thought, again, adding more people, we would move faster. But again, especially when you're adding inexperienced people, it actually slowed us down. So that was definitely a lesson learned the hard way, and how do you effectively scale this team, like we mentioned before. And then I guess a lesson learned the easy way, so we kind of got away with it, was it took us a lot longer than we thought to build it. So we made all these promises, then we didn't deliver at all. We were like months behind, in fact. So the fact that we're still around and we still have actually grown the amount of people interested in supporting us and the amount of people signing up for the beta, again, we kind of got away with it because we could have easily blown it. We told people, yeah, we'll be out in a month, and then 3 months later we still didn't have the app, or we had like a very basic version that crashed every so often. So knowing your team's ability and how do you make a realistic schedule and stick to it, and under promise, over deliver, all that kind of combined, we definitely blew that one the first time around, and we're lucky that it didn't really matter too much to us, but it definitely could have. So
my lesson that I sort of had to learn the hard way was growing when you were told to grow, right? So, don't go out there and hire the additional designer just because you think you need an additional designer. Don't go out there and hire a web developer just because you think, well, we might need a web developer and we might be able to, he can make a website. We started becoming more efficient as a company and paying all of the bills on time more regularly when we hired as it was warranted to hire. Okay, well, let's go out and land this account. And if the account that we land wants us to build a website, well, then we'll go hire the website guy. We'll figure that out after we get the account. Get the client, get the business, and then bring on the team. It sounds so easy now that I say it, but you sort of don't think that way when you're trying to build a business. You try to build this castle with a moat around you, and then it's like, okay, now I have all these things and now I can go do all these things, but that's backwards. It's the other way around in business, in my opinion. It's sort of finding the business and finding the work and then finding the staff to match that business. Will make sure that you're always able to pay the bills, which at the end of the day is the idea behind the business.
Exactly. So kind of on that thread, what are some things today that if you could go back and tell yourself at the beginning of this, you could tell yourself, like, listen, like, do this before, make sure you heed this warning. What would you like to go back and tell yourself, Aidan?
I would have learned more in depth the programming side. So I have an engineering background, and I knew the prototyping piece, which I mentioned earlier, and that definitely helped me, again, recruit developers and help understand the development process. But if I could go back, I really would have just done it myself, not entirely myself, but been as involved as the rest of the development team, because and that's just because it's taken us so long, and for a while, I felt like I was kind of going crazy because I couldn't. The thing that was slowing us down was development, and I could not directly contribute to it. And so now we're at the point where we finally are about to relaunch our totally overhauled, amazing new version, and it's going to be a lot of fun for me to run around marketing it. But if I could go back, I would have learned true in-depth development from the get-go. I still highly recommend that to anybody who's starting a business today.
Jordan?
If I could go back, what would I have done? There's a big list of those things. I thought of one this morning. The one that I thought of this morning was sort of going out and finding. We've really been on fire the last 2 or 3 weeks, or a month, actually. And it's because we've found clients, and then we've listened to them, and then we've gone and we've partnered with them, and we went and built what they asked us to build. And I know that sounds so simple, but there's a beauty behind that because you're efficient. You're running at 100% efficiency when you're going and you're finding somebody, and then you're carrying out exactly what they're willing to pay you to carry out. Also, the other lesson I wish I would have thought of earlier is sort of the idea of white labeling that Oren keeps alluding to, and that's sort of building out an app or a system that can be used in more places than just one. Right now we're building an app for UF called Snap App, and the idea is that you'll be able to take out your iPhone or your Android and you'll be able to pull it up and you'll be on a map and you'll select the van that you want to come pick you up, and it will know where you're at and where you want to go. Well, that system can be licensed out to hundreds of other universities in the United States with marginal amount of effort and work. But you can make a lot of money off of something like that, and that system can provide a lot of value to people. It provides more value to the universities too, because you can provide that value to their students or to their users at a reduced rate, since you're going to make up your profit and your costs from a group as a whole as opposed to just one client. And so I wish I was thinking more in those terms rather than, eating what we kill, which is sort of custom app development, which is you go out, you get a job, you build it, you're done. You go out, get a job. I mean, that is a grind. And so that lifestyle isn't really one that I like too much. I wish I would have thought of more of these, 2 or 3 or 4 big systems. You can really make an impact on the world that way.
Yeah, I think looking back now, I really agree with Jordan. The model we're seeing that works out there is taking your software, building it once the right way, and then being able to license it out to have him use it, her use it, and they all pay you. And so you're getting a monthly revenue or a one-time fee from them, however you want to charge for it. But you've built that software once. You don't have to go out and build a new app for that person or build a new app for that person. You build it right once with the user friendliness that everyone wants, the easy admin for them to manage it themselves, and then it's a real business. The model that always I was going by was Twitter was out there. That's completely free to their users, and they're worth billions of dollars. Or Facebook gave it out for free, and they're worth billions of dollars. And unless you're one of those select few, it doesn't work that you just put it out there and you're worth billions of dollars for free. So yeah, definitely taking the technology and being able to license it out multiple times seems to be the lesson that I would like to have gone back to my starting days and just gone with that.
Just have a quick comment. I just noticed this pretty interesting cross-section here. With Feathr, we have one product, and we are going this one thing that we plan on giving to everybody. And you have one product, but you plan on white labeling it to multiple people. You guys have multiple products. Some are one, and some are white labeling. So that's pretty interesting that we have this whole spectrum of different app business models right here.
And on the surface, it doesn't look. On the surface, you see the sports app, the business app, the transportation app. There's so much more going on behind the scenes that most of the world will never know is going on. You could have the same app 5 times on the phone, but the same person, you don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the one other thing, the students are going to be watching this video in a couple of months, right, in the entrepreneurship program. So sort of to tie this whole thing back and make it relevant to them, I think our company will be successful because we've found ourselves in an area where we have partners in what we're building. The University of Florida is well, yeah, they're going to pay us to make this app, but they're going to be partners, and they're going to be sort of financially rewarded when we can turn around and then license this app out to different universities over and over again, using their name as a referral. We want to be in a situation where we can create win-win scenarios like that. The Gainesville Chamber of Commerce, same idea. I'm going to create it for them first. But at the same time, they'll be the first people that get all the upgrades on the app when it comes out. They'll be the beta testers when we want to start getting into building databases for these chambers of commerce, which every one of them has, to manage all of their membership information. They'll be the ones that get the free maintenance package every single year, as opposed to collecting that recurring revenue from all the other ones. And so we're lucky to be in a place like Gainesville, where the University of Florida is 2 blocks away, and the Chamber of Commerce is young and innovative, and just hired their new chamber president who's in his late 20s. Where do you see that in the world? The new chamber president in Gainesville is a young guy. He looks as young as me, and it's like, wow, that's not what people think about of chamber presidents across America. But we're in a place where taking a risk and starting your own company and being an entrepreneur is significantly rewarded, and I think that's cool. You don't hear of that environment being everywhere.
Yeah, no, Gainesville is definitely a city of its own. Boca has its perks too, but so I think with that we'll turn it over to the audience, because I'm sure there are some questions in the audience that we can source, because this is a panel of speakers and not just conversation on stage. So any questions from the audience?
If you're looking at a mobile website versus iPhone and Android, does it depend on your business? Basically,
So I guess to rephrase that is the question is, how do you choose what platform to put it on? Is that what?
Yeah, so the mobile web versus Android versus iPhone, when they evolve, they're all different.
Right.
Mobile web, I hear, costs a lot less, versus doing native apps for several platforms to reach everybody with just one thing. It's mobile web. So I mean, is that the biggest part of the weighted average when you look at it, or are there far more things to consider when you're looking at how to put it out there?
So the question, just to rephrase it, how do you end up choosing which route to go? How do you weigh which route to go as far as choosing a platform?
Do you want to take it first?
So when you look at developing a mobile app, it's the most common question I get. There's a couple different options. You can develop a web app, which sort of you develop it once, works everywhere, works on the BlackBerry, works on the iPhone, works on the Android. And that's because it works through the internet browser of the phone. It's using HTML as opposed to a native language of the phone. And so there's pros and cons to all of these answers. The pro to it, it's going to be cheaper to develop because it's going to take less time. The talent that it takes to find the talent will be easier to find because you're looking for things like HTML developers, which is, anybody who's done programming work knows HTML, or they should. And the time is going to be less. So sort of we're in the service business, right? So it's a function of time is the cost. And the time is less because you're only developing at one time and it works across all the platforms. When I go and develop a native app for the iPhone that they also want for the Android, not a single line of code is reusable when I take it from the iPhone to the Android. So it's like you got to start from a clean slate. So, the pros are quicker, easier, faster, but the con to that is that you're creating a mobile app and you're creating a software solution using the lowest common denominator. And the reason I say that is because you have to develop on logic that works across the iPhone, the Android, BlackBerry, Windows, all of those sort of things. And so when you're creating these functions or these classes or these features on the app, you can only create the ones that work the same across all of those things. And so you find yourself a little bit more restricted. The user experience is not as good. The best example I can think of is Facebook. Anybody out here who's got the iPhone notices that they all of a sudden like the Facebook app. I've been saying the worst things about Facebook for 2 years. I stopped using it for a while because the app was so terrible on the phone. It was clunky. It didn't work. It crashed all the time. And
Their iPhone Facebook app, is that what you're referring to?
right. And I guess they're coming out with it on Android. But what they did was they took their web app, which is what that was, and they've made it now into a native app. And that's not to say that native is always the right answer, but for an app that has a lot of data that you need to run smoothly and in a robust way, you're going to have a very difficult time doing that, in a web app for something like Facebook. And so what they did was they went back and they reconstructed it. So
I'd like to follow up on that too, because we had a very, interesting journey on which way to go. So as Jordan mentioned, more people know how to do web programming, JavaScript and HTML and CSS, so that definitely makes it easier. And so that was why, for us, we actually went this route. It's kind of a hybrid. There's a tool called PhoneGap that lets you stick a mobile website or a mobile web app into a native app, basically, and it's pretty clever. PhoneGap is a native code for Android and for iPhone or whatever, and it basically makes a browser, but the browser only runs your website. So to a user, it looks like it's just a normal app, but what's actually happening is it is a browser and it is your website, just you can't tell. So it's pretty cool, and it lets you reuse it, but you can also stick it in the App Store for Android and for iPhone, which you can't do with a normal website, obviously. So that was what we did, and that was kind of cool. It let us get multi-platform pretty quick, and it still had the native feel to it. It wasn't just running through a browser, it wasn't just internet connection. It would run even when you had no data. But the performance reduction was still there. So something like a 4x reduction in speed on the iPhone in terms of response time, clicking a button, and even if it takes a half a second instead of a tenth of a second, that's really noticeable for it to click and register.
Save you money.
Yeah, it saves money and time. And also, back to the talent piece, our team knew web development and had never done Objective-C. We had never done Android native development with Java. So it made a lot of sense for us. We knew how to do this. We could get multi-platform. Is this the best thing ever? But then we realized, and we're still dealing with this now, it's never going to be as fast. It's never going to be as smooth. It's never going to be as powerful or robust. And some of the features, we'd have to do some pretty crazy workarounds because, grabbing the phone's GPS system or the camera on native features to the phone, there are ways to do it with HTML5 or with PhoneGap has some plugins, but it's not built for that. Whereas obviously the SDK that comes with Xcode for iPhone has really easy tools to grab the iPhone's camera or to grab whatever. So it's definitely the performance piece is the big one. It's slower, and then it just makes it harder to do certain features and functionalities. So
yeah, I think I could build also on these, both these. We went the same route as Aidan, just using Appcelerator has a platform called Titanium, which allows you to develop it once and release it cross-platform. And also, you get to submit to the Apple App Store. You could submit to Android.
Is Titanium also a JavaScript framework?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. It's basically the same. But I think one of the lessons we learned was we wanted to be on the web, on the iPhones, and on the Android because we think that was the whole market. So we got the web piece down and we perfected it. Then we got the iPhone piece down and perfected it. And then the one roadblock we ran into with Android is that as compared to the iPhone, you get one screen to develop off, a 3.5-inch screen that's been that way forever. They released an iPhone 5, came out today, 4-inch screen, but you could still run the same app and it'll look the same way. And then you get to Android. Android has hundreds of devices, all different size screens, ranging up from 4.3 down to small screens, to tablets that are all different sizes. And we tried to launch all at once, and we put an Android app out to a small beta test group. And we would realize that the settings button on one screen was in the top right corner, but then the screen got a little bigger and it dropped to the bottom left. And we've had so many issues with that the next step we had to take was go native for both iOS now and Android. And we're in the process of developing both them natively. And although more expensive, like Aidan says, the response time, someone touches a button on our game right now, they wait 1.5 seconds, they feel like they're waiting an eternity because they're so used to the way their iPhone works that when they touch it, they get that immediate response. So yeah, we started doing all at once, and now we're going native on each platform.
We're also in the process of rewriting natively, so I think the conclusion really here is native is significantly better.
But to get your market share from a competitive standpoint, are you happy to do it at least first that way to get at least in front of everybody, the first mover, then go back and do native? I mean, are you still competitive aspect?
I think for our game to continue development, we needed the user acceptance. And to get the user acceptance, we wanted to be out on all platforms. So we got it out there. We got the users playing it. They liked it, but the complaint was it's too slow. So I think we needed to learn that lesson by going through the process we went through. I don't know, for Aidan.
For us, again, we didn't have much of a choice, or we didn't think we did because it's based on the experience of the team. But I guess going back, we had this question before. Another way, I think we would have just, even though we didn't know it, learned it. And even if it took longer, because we're still in beta now, and how many users are you going to get in 9 months anyway? So you're not going to take over the world in 9 months, and especially not if your app is slow or restricted in certain ways, And so that's, it seems like we've had a very similar experience there. We pushed it out on all platforms, and it worked, and we got some good test feedback, and it was great that people could use it on both iPhone and Android, but, we still haven't hit the point where we're pushing mass adoption. So we didn't, it's not like we have these 100,000 users that we wouldn't have had if we had taken more time on the app. So I do think I would have done native from the start if we could do it over.
This can be, this is a long debate too, right? Like you could Google this and read about this for hours. If you have the money, I think, if you have the money, you go native every time. But if you don't, then, you go web. Sometimes people call me and ask if we can make an app for $5,000 or $10,000, and it's just impossible to do that without losing a lot of money. To make a good native app, you're looking at, 30, 40, 50, 60, $100,000. So it's significant. And for guys like, like Aidan and Oren, they probably also got to work out a lot of their business and marketing kinks and kind of figuring out the functionality. So there probably was value in them doing it this way the first time. But there is no one. I don't think there's one universal answer to that question. I think it just depends on what you're trying to do.
All right, we have time for one more question. Let's go over here.
Yeah, I was just curious, how would you consider changing your strategy if you had developed an app that was more for B2B use, or for a company you're selling direct to, rather than selling to the end consumer?
So the question, just for the camera, B2B consumers versus B2C consumers, so business to business versus business to, I guess, end user consumer, would your strategy have changed?
Right. I think I could start off on that. Initially, we were a B2C, but our customer was a free playing user. That strategy, thinking back now, I wish I had just gone and built a B2B app, which is where we are at now, taking the technology we've created and selling it to a business so they can run our technology on their site or on their mobile app. I think you made a good point. Just looking back, I would go that route from the get-go. I think B2B is a lot easier than dealing with an individual consumer and making them pay $1 by just pressing that button. People don't want to do it, and the businesses want to build the apps.
So for us, by the nature of what we're doing, we're trying to solve networking, both personal and professional networking. So for a corporate account, because we do plan in the future to have an enterprise version that we could sell to, say, the University of Florida, and then all UF employees, instead of having their paper business card that says UF, they would have their Feathr card branded with UF. And so when you're selling to a corporate account, I think you focus on different things. You likely are talking to somebody who is older and more professional, but likely less tech savvy in most cases. It's a general statement, but that's likely the case. Whereas, if we're trying to pitch college students on using Feathr, we're going to say, hey, you can share your Facebook, your Twitter, your blog, your Tumblr, all these other wonderful things that you do, and it's interactive and it's directly phone to phone, and and students get that. Whereas for us, again, in the networking space, pitching to a company would be more, you have control over your brand's image, and it's seamless updating. So when you have a new employee, you don't have to order a new stack of cards and wait for it to come. So it's just you focus on different features or different benefits that are there. So the benefits are there. It's just how do you sell it, and you can't list out everything, because then people just tone you out. So you have to focus on the few key things. And so if we were focusing on B2B, we would focus more on the business side rather than the personal social media side.
Great. So that's all the time we have on camera today. Again, Oren, Aidan, Jordan, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thank you so much.